The all-consuming bugs from beyond the galaxy are blasting their way onto the competitive scene. Today we're going to take a look at some of their strongest performing tournament lists. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where today we're talking Nids, and in particular I've been asked a few times on the last few videos to talk about some of the Tyranid lists that have been performing really well at tournaments, and putting those very nice Warzone Octarius buffs and powers into good effect. I already recently did a Codex Tyranid tier list, and hopefully we might do a bit of an overview of the faction in a week or so feel free to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see that. It does seem that Warzone Octarius has had a really big effect on the Tyranids. That Codex Leviathan supplement seems to be one of the strongest supplements that Games Workshop have come out with yet. Some seriously good stuff in terms of warlord traits and stratagems there, and those synaptic link abilities just add a whole load of very cheap buffing abilities, which will be a great tool to strengthen just about any army, and there's a fair few interesting combos that you can throw out with them. In this video we're just going to take a look at two of the new lists that have done well in tournaments recently, and talk a little bit about the things that they might be able to do. So first up, I thought it would be worth talking about Cheema's list, the guy who came runner-up at the Austin Open over in Texas, one of Games Workshop's own flagship events. This one's leaning very heavily on the Hive Guard spam, with a few support units about like Gene Stealers and Termagants. It's certainly a brutally strong list, and was only bested by Mr. Siegler's Drakari, whose feel no pain saves and -1 damage mechanics allowed the Homunculus Covens to weather the storm and gain the upper hand in the game. The list is made up of 3 different patrol detachments, a Leviathan patrol, a Kronos patrol, and a little Gene Stealer Cult Allied patrol, which seems to be really quite a common inclusion in Tyranid lists. That might change a bit when the new Gene Stealer Codex comes out. First up, the vast majority of the units are contained in the Leviathan patrol. Not really too surprising given the incredibly powerful options that they have, multiple great warlord traits, and really handy damage dealing stratagems such as getting exploding hits on 6s. The swarm is led by Tyranid Prime. He's basically the linchpin for the warlord traits for the army, a cheap little character Tyranid warrior who's got a rather good synaptic link ability too. That's the unchecked ferocity one, which allows him to give one unit where 6s to hit auto wound the enemy. That's a really big deal on squads that throw out an absolute ton of mass attacks, such as these Gene Stealers. It'll certainly let them punch through far more wounds on the targets, particularly tough things that they'd normally be wounding on 5s. As well as that, he's basically bearing all the good stuff from High Fleet Leviathan. Swarm Leader to give full hit rerolls, which could usually go on the Hive Guard, though could be used on the Gene Stealers if needed. Strategic Adaptation, which allows you to redeploy 2 units, and basically either keep them safe from the enemy, or put units right on the edge of the deployment zone to threaten first turn charges and things. Very easily done with the Swarm Lord around. And he also takes the Adaptive Neural Lobe as well, the Leviathan relic that allows him to do a little bit of command point farming whenever the opponent spends a CP. Not too bad as a free relic whatsoever. He's not really very good in combat, but to be honest he doesn't really need to be. He's pretty happy just sitting there handing out all of those buffs and staying safe. With the potential to actually venture out though, we have the Swarm Lord, again a very common pick in competitive Tyranid lists, 220 points worth of decent melee character, who can also do a couple of psychic powers, and perhaps most importantly allow one unit to double move, guaranteeing you very long charges with the Gene Stealers once you've taken into account their advance. He takes Catalyst and Onslaught, Catalyst for the 5+ feel no pain to keep a unit safe, and Onslaught to allow one unit to advance and charge if needed, maybe best used on himself. His main issue is being able to be directly targeted if he is visible, so a prime choice for hiding out of line of sight turn 1. Next up, before we get into the world of Hive Guard, we have 2 units of 12 Gene Stealers. These are great units to receive the Psychic and the buffs from the Swarm Lord and the Prime, and 3 of them have opted to take Acid Moors for a little bit more AP. Maybe fairly pricey little units, but with ridiculously fast moving OBSEC that will just shred infantry. Until these guys are neutralised, a lot of your units won't be safe from being charged. Next we have an enormous unit of Termagants with Devourers, 27 of them to be exact, and these can farm out a crazy amount of strength 4 shooting if they need to, over 80 shots out of the unit, and depending on what's more important to buff, the Hive Guard or these guys, again they can get very scary, picking up things like exploding 6s, shooting twice, 4 rerolls to hit, and exploding 6s as well. Perhaps a good defense against the Tyranids being outswarmed if the Impaler cannons are struggling to thin a horde too much. Then we've got a cheap unit of Chaff in 10 Termagants with Flesh Borers, a good one for grunt work, actions, objectives or screening. And then we have a unit of Hive Guard Leviathan with Impaler cannons, 5 Hive Guard that I'm sure are going to be buffed into the stratosphere each turn, likely chilling alongside that Tyranid Prime. I've already made an entire video about Hive Guard, so feel free to search that up if you'd like to, but 36-inch range, strength 8, and crazy amounts of shooting really bodes quite well for just being able to remove any one unit that you need to. Moving on, we come to the Kronos Patrol. Kronos being the Hive fleet that you get to re-roll hit rolls of 1 when you're stationary, so it seemed like really quite a nice one for Hive Guard. And they've also got another couple of helpful bits, an easy psychic denial on a 4+, and their psychic power Symbio Storm, which is taken by a Neurothrope here. That one allows you to get exploding 6s with a shooting unit. The main purpose of this one seems to be 2 units of 6 Hive Guard with Impaler cannons, both of which are likely to be paired by a couple of units of Tyranid warriors, both of which have taken the Bioweapon Bond Synaptic Link ability. That's the one to give them +1 to hit. With hitting on 2s re-rolling 1s, that's going to be some ridiculously efficient firepower. And with 3 full units of these little horrors, the Nids should comfortably be able to nuke the single most important unit in the opponent's army each turn, never mind what the Gene Stealers and Termagants can do. The warriors are also semi-tough in themselves, have a bit of OBSEC, and perhaps could be used to defend the Hive Guard against encroaching enemies if they can mix it up in combat to good effect. Finally, we have that Gene Stealer Cult Patrol detachment. This one's mainly here to get the Magus with Mass Hypnosis and Mind Control. Mass Hypnosis is just an enormously powerful psychic power, combining 3 really potent debuffs all in one spell, no Overwatch, -1 to hit, and most importantly of all, fights last, so your opponent can't use the interrupt stratagem to get the jump on your unit. Could easily allow those Stealers to engage 2 different targets at once, and be safe from the enemy interrupting and killing them first. Mind Control's maybe a slightly more interesting pick. It's the one that allows you to potentially take control of one enemy gun. A bit situational maybe, but a power that could go off to crazy good effect if something with suitable damage output does come within your grasp. Otherwise, and finally in the patrol, there's just a cheap unit of 5 Acolyte Hybrids. Not too bad to have a bit of inbuilt deep strike there. They'd be good again for actions and objectives, deep striking onto the board where they're most needed. Overall, it looks incredibly intimidating to play against. Certainly a massive skew list with firing so many Hive Guard at the opponent. If they could be tagged or neutralized early, then you're in for a bad time, but hopefully that should be quite hard to achieve with all those Gene Stealers and the Termagants getting in your face and punishing your advance. In any case, it's quite good fun to see the new face of competitive Tyranids in 9th. Finally, I thought we'd just take a look at one other list, this one by Tyler Heppler, who used it to take first at the Osatillo Onslaught GT. Maybe a good example of something that's a little bit more balanced and isn't quite as skewed to farming out loads and loads of Hive Guard. To be honest, it is kind of interesting just to see how much similarities there are between the 2 lists. There's an absolutely identical Tyranid Prime going on here, and the Swarm Lord's here too, though he does swap out Catalyst for Paroxysm here. Again, there's 2 meaty blocks of Gene Stealers, slightly bigger ones of 16 this time, and 30 Termagants with Devourers. There's then a couple of slightly different troops, 10 Hormagants for some slightly faster moving OBSEC chaff, and 5 Tyranid Warriors, 2 with Lash Whips and Bone Swords, all take Adrenal Glands and take the Bioweapon Bond. Between that and maybe coordinating with that Tyranid Prime, it could actually put out a decent amount of damage in melee, quite a nice countercharged threat perhaps. There is a unit of 6 Hive Guard. Even without going too heavy on them, they are kind of a unit that's just why wouldn't you include them, because they're just that efficient at the moment and are bound to give your opponent some problems. Even just this one unit can put out a monumental amount of fire. Layer them up with the good Leviathan buffs and then 2 CP to fire twice. This unit's taking Enhanced Resistance, that's the one that allows them to ignore AP-1 and AP-2, and that can be pretty powerful for foxing some of the more common Ignores line of sight weaponry, things maybe like Guard Manticores or Plague Burst Crawlers. We've then got a Maleceptor with Catalyst and Focal Essence. Maleceptors do seem to be seeing a bit more play for Tyranids these days. They are really quite hard to shift with their 4+ Invul, I guess. They'll cast Psychic powers very reliably with their +1 to cast, and that Focal Essence buff really is quite a good one. Wound rolls of 6 get an extra pip of AP, and you can re-roll the damage rolls of attacks. Going to be kind of useful on multiple units that. The Hive Guard certainly won't say no with their damage D3 weapons, but it's pretty solid on things like the Termagants and Gene Stealers as well. With massive flurries of low strength attacks, getting extra AP on those 6s could actually be a decent increase. We've then got a unit of 3 Venom Throbes, a pretty interesting choice that I haven't seen taken quite so much, giving out some nice -1s to hit for the swarms as they advance, and then 2 units of cheap Sky Slasher swarms. Interesting to see them played over Rippers. Usually you see people take Rippers as they're a bit cheaper and have OBSEC. I guess having 12-inch movement is pretty handy. Could be handy enough for jumping from cover to cover, or maybe getting in things like table quarters for secondaries maybe. Finally, we've got a very similar patrol to the last one, that same Magus with Mass Hypnosis and Mind Control. and then this time 2 units of 5 acolytes, both of which take 4 hand flamers for a little bit of anti-infantry punch with strength 3 auto hits. Again, really quite useful for objectives. Kind of nice to know that they could be used to clear some chaff if absolutely needed though. In any case, a really cool list. It's nice to see that Tyranids can still win events without having to maximise Hive Guard. And it's quite nice to see a list that's really quite balanced, a bunch of swarms, a few mid-sized supporting critters, and a couple of monsters. So I think we'll leave that there for today. Let me know what you think of the lists down in the comments below, and feel free to give me any other insights that you have on them. I'm sure I'll have missed plenty of the subtleties around them. After all, I didn't design or play them myself. If you've enjoyed the video, then feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I will certainly be doing a bit more Tyranid content, including an overview of the factions shortly, including plenty of other regularly scheduled 40k stuff with new videos every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention one way in which you can help support it, which is my Element Games affiliate link down in the video description below. If you were thinking about picking up some models in the near future, Element Games is a decent discount retailer based here in the UK. They usually give 10 to 20% off Games Workshop's miniatures, and if you were looking to pick up anything in the near future, if you click the link in the video description, a small amount of money goes to help support Auspex Tactics without costing you any more whatsoever. Can just be a way to help out the channel if you were thinking about ordering something in anyway. For those of you over in the USA and Canada, I do also have a very similar Amazon link down there as well. Feel free to check that out if you'd like. It works in just the same way. Click the link, search and buy whatever you were going to buy off Amazon, and a small amount goes to help out Auspex Tactics. Again, it doesn't cost you any more. A massive thank you to you guys who have been using those, it really helps out, and a big thank you for listening. I'll hope to see you guys next time.